disgraced former FBI director just revealed a shocking new contradiction surrounding the department's FISA abuses. Plus, earlier today, the president rightly blasting James Comey, Robert Mueller, and even the DOJ. And of course, we will play you his remarks and reveal just how abusively biased and corrupt our two-tier justice system has become. And we have more pro-Trump tweets from Kanye West. Hollywood elites, liberal America are unhinged over this. Plus, Bill Cosby, guilty, facing up to 30 years in prison after being found guilty of sexual assault. We have full reports coming up tonight. And breaking just moments ago, we are monitoring the history in the making. The North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un, became the first leader of North Korea to cross the border and step into South Korea. We're going to show you this historic tape. But first, it's time for tonight's very important breaking news opening monologue. All right, so as we speak, the House of Representatives is now pouring through 49 brand new additional pages of newly uncovered text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Now, you might remember these messages were a part of the 6 months of missing texts that somehow, well, were lost because of an alleged technical issue with the FBI-issued Samsung phones. Fox News can right now confirm that many of these unearthed texts contain incomplete information, and some are totally incomprehensible. Sarah Carter joins us in a few minutes with the brand new information. And of course, we know in previous texts, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, constantly trashing President Trump, calling him an idiot, a menace, a lonesome human being, and even said F Trump. And prior to Election Day in 2016, Peter Strzok also mentioned some kind of insurance policy that was proposed to Andrew McCabe if Trump should assume office. Now, quote, I want to believe the path that you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. What did that mean? Also remember the letter from then-Senator Harry Reid urging Jim Comey to open up a Trump-Russia collusion investigation into President Trump. After that letter became public, Peter Strzok, well, he texted Lisa Page a link to a New York Times article referencing the letter, writing, quote, here we go. Now, we're literally they were actively rooting for the president's demise. Or what is the insurance policy? What is the insurance plan? Was it to drag the president through the mud? Either way, it's not a good look for two people that were tapped by Robert Mueller for key roles in this special counsel investigation witch hunt. And even worse, this does critical damage to the reputation of our system of justice. Every one of us, every American needs to be concerned. All right, also breaking tonight, James Comey was grilled by Bret Baier right here on the Fox News channel. He's now claiming that the Clinton bought and paid for, unverified, uncorroborated dossier that made up the bulk of the FISA application. He's saying did not make up the bulk of the FISA information against the Trump campaign associate, even though we have two congressional memos that contradict what James Comey said just a few minutes ago, well, a few hours ago. Take a look.
You called the dossier unverified, salacious. Why did you use that to the FISA court to ask for surveillance for Carter Page? Not only use it, but you led with it. A bulk of that FISA application deals with that dossier. Why?
Yeah, that's not my recollection, Brett. And I don't know that the FISA application has been released. My recollection was it was part of a broader mosaic of facts that were laid before the FISA judge to obtain a FISA warrant.
There was a lot more than the dossier in the FISA application?
My recollection was there was a significant amount of additional material about Page and why there was probable cause to believe he was an agent of a foreign power. And the dossier was part of that, but was not all of it or a critical part of it. To my recollection.
I'm having a really hard time believing that. And this is almost unbelievable. Jim Comey still claiming not to know who paid for Hillary's dirty dossier with Russian lies and propaganda that was put together by a foreign national, including Russian government lies. Look at this.
When did you learn that the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign had funded Christopher Steele's work?
Yeah, I still don't know that for a fact.
What do you mean?
I've only seen it in the media. I never knew exactly which Democrats had funded. I knew it was funded first by Republicans, opposed to Donald.
But that's not true.
I'm sorry?
That's not true. That the dossier that Christopher Steele worked on was funded by Republicans?
My understanding was his work started funded by Oppo Research, funded by Republicans.
So Free Beacon and said that they had Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS on a kind of a retainer, but they did not fund the Christopher Steele memo or the dossier. That was initiated by Democrats.
Okay, my understanding was the activity was begun, that Steele was hired to look into, was first funded by Republicans, then picked up, the important thing was picked up by Democrats opposed to Donald Trump.
This is mind-blowing. They never verified it. He didn't know who funded it? Really? And Christopher Steele was not brought in until Hillary took over the Fusion GPS deep dive into Donald Trump. Now, earlier today, the president called in to Fox and Friends and sounded off, rightly so, on Jim Comey. Listen to the president.
Comey is a leaker and he's a liar. And not only on this stuff, he's been leaking for years. He's probably been using his friend, the so-called professor, who now turns out to have FBI clearance, which he never said. He even lied about that because he never said that in Congress. He said he gave it to a friend. And he gave it to a friend to leak classified information. It's all classified. It was totally classified. So he did an illegal act. And he said it himself, in order to get a special counsel against me. So the special counsel, and by the way, and Intelligence Committee and everybody else has found no collusion. Nobody unclassified them. And those memos were about me, and they're phony memos. He didn't write those memos accurately. He put a lot of phony stuff.
President's correct. And the president also slamming the Department of Justice and Mueller's partisan witch hunt. Let's take a look at this.
I answer this all the time. Because of the fact that they have this witch hunt going on with people in the Justice Department that shouldn't be there, they have a witch hunt against the President of the United States going on. I've taken the position, and I don't have to take this position, and maybe I'll change, that I will not be involved with the Justice Department. I will wait till this is over. It's a total it's all lies, and it's a horrible thing that's going on. So I'm very disappointed in my Justice Department. But because of the fact that it's going on, and I think you'll understand this, I have decided that I won't be involved. I may change my mind at some point because what's going on is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And by the way, the only collusion is the collusion with the Democrats and the Russians. You take a look at what's going on there. They wouldn't even give their server, the DNC, Democratic National Committee, wouldn't even give its server to the FBI. So what kind of an FBI? They break down doors for Paul Manafort early in the morning. His wife is in bed, like at 5 or 6 in the morning, and they undo the lock for Michael Cohen early in the morning. And yet they walk into the DNC and they won't give them the server. They say, we're not giving you the server. Oh, okay, we'll leave. That's not the FBI. That's a fix.
Why didn't they demand those DNC servers? A phenomenal point. Double standard. President Trump is right. Now, earlier today, the National Review's Victor Davis Hanson, an incredible column breaking down the shocking double standard in very clear terms. Mueller was all too happy to target former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, 35 years of service to his country, for lying to the FBI. The FBI agents interviewing him didn't think so. Andrew McCabe, he remains uncharged, even after the Inspector General reported multiple lies to federal investigators under oath. And James Comey also remains free and clear when he lied to Congress about not writing Hillary Clinton's exoneration letter before investigating and interviewing Clinton. And then Peter Strzok interviewed Clinton. What about James Clapper? We know he lied under oath about data collection on Americans, and John Brennan, who lied under oath about the dirty dossier. And then, of course, no charges, as the president was just saying, for Cheryl Mills, who misled investigators about Hillary Clinton's private server, or Huma Abedin, who also tried to conceal Hillary's illicit server. Then there's the obstruction of justice charges that Mueller is all too happy to investigate as long as it's Donald Trump or somebody related to Trump, but not James Comey, who clearly misled a FISA judge about the Clinton bought and paid for foreign dossier put together by Christopher Steele in order to obtain a warrant against a Trump campaign associate, an opposition party, before the election? Seriously? Is this the United States or are we Venezuela? Now, the Clinton campaign, they paid this former spy a foreign national, to write the dossier using Russia propaganda and lies. Nobody verified it or corroborated it, and they still presented it to a FISA judge, and they omitted who paid for it. Not Clinton associate Cheryl Mills. She claimed attorney-client privilege in order to get out of testifying during the server investigation. And now the newest addition of President Trump's legal team, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. He is weighing in on the ongoing Mueller witch hunt, telling a local news station, quote, "I can guarantee you this, when Mueller's finished, no matter whatever he does, he's not going to have a stitch of evidence that," meaning he, President Trump, colluded with the Russians. Now that's a disgrace. The case should be over. The mayor's right. Now even the Attorney General, finally, Jeff Sessions, is calling for the Mueller probe to come to an end. For the sake of this country, this needs to come to an end. Watch this.
I think the American people are concerned, and the president is concerned. He's dealing with France and North Korea and Syria and taxes and regulations and border and crime every day. And I wish this thing needs to conclude.
It needs to conclude. Yes, sir, Mr. Attorney General. He also claimed that he would not be appointing a second special counsel to investigate deep state crimes because special counsel investigations take on a life of their own. Well, you don't say. Take a look.
We're determined to be disciplined, stay within our classical procedures and rules. I do not think we need to willy-nilly appoint special counsels, and as we can see, it can really take on a life of its own.
Let me be clear. These are obvious examples of bias at some of the highest levels of our system of justice in this country. Every American, you should be troubled. I always say, let not your heart be troubled. But this is an obvious two-tiered system of justice. We all deserve and must demand better. And by the way, we'll have more analysis on this deep state corruption later in the show. But first, now, despite pressure from some of his liberal Hollywood friends, Kanye West, good for him, he's not backing down from his, quote, love for President Trump. And Kanye was pictured leaving his studio proudly wearing his Make America Great Again hat. And earlier today, he tweeted, quote, "If you feel something, don't let peer pressure manipulate you." I love people that stand up for what they believe in. Anyway, this week, Kanye West, he's been taking a stand for individual thought after supporting Black conservative Candace Owens, who came under fire from the left for comments about victim mentality culture. By the way, we'll have more on Kanye's developing friendship with the president later in the program. Candace also is going to be on the show tonight. But here with reaction to all of these developments out of Washington tonight, we're joined by Florida Congressman, also gubernatorial candidate, who I have said I want to win to be the next governor. And Ron DeSantis is with us, sir. Okay, I know these are just released. We're pouring through the 49 pages. We know the hatred Strzok and Page have for President Trump. What do you got so far?
Well, Sean, I think this is incomplete production. I mean, we know their texting habits of how often they were texting in other periods. And so this is the period December of 2016 during the Trump transition, all the way up until the firing of James Comey and then the appointment of Robert Mueller as a special counsel. Yet there's only 40-some pages there. There's gaps. Some of the stuff is incomplete. So I don't think that this is a full production. I think there's more questions that this raises, and we're going to have to go back to the Justice Department and ask them why they weren't able to recover the full Strzok Page text messages.
Congressman, I had multiple sources telling me tonight that they suspect that there were other devices used as well. Did you get that? Is that your interpretation looking at this?
Yes, and we've also have reason to believe that they were using something called the clean Gmail, which is everyone has access to the account and you just do messages in the draft and then respond to draft, so you're not actually sending emails. So yeah, there's a lot of things that they do using iMessage. So we've got to get all of that we can get for sure, but this is not it. I mean, Sean, you've documented these are lovebirds. They had all this hatred for the president. They were very quick to put their opinions about everything that was going on, and yet here, you'll just see gap after gap. So I'm not satisfied.
Okay, I want to go to the issue. How is it possible Peter Strzok is in the middle of all this? He interviewed General Flynn, apparently didn't think he was lying. How did he get charged then? But also interviewed Hillary Clinton. But that was in July of 2016. It was early May of 2016 where it was Strzok and Comey himself writing an exoneration that actually used the standard, the legal standard that means Hillary would have broken the law. They changed the wording to take that part out, and the original drafting also had in that multiple foreign intelligence agencies had hacked into Hillary Clinton's email server, and that means top secret, classified, special access programming information was in fact obtained by America's enemies, and none of it would have been redacted, sir.
So if you were somebody who was on Hillary's campaign team at the time and you could have suggested changes to be made to that statement, you would have suggested exactly the changes that Peter Strzok insisted on to try to reduce Hillary's level of recklessness and her culpability. And so he was involved in the thick of that case. And here's, I think, why it's so troubling with Strzok's conduct. What does he do after Comey exonerates Hillary? A couple weeks later, he opens up a collusion case against the Trump campaign based off what we now know was a 2-page document with no actual intelligence. And then eventually they supplemented it with a fake dossier paid for by the Democrats. But Strzok was the prime driver, not only behind exonerating Hillary, but then pursuing this collusion fairy tale. And that ultimately led to the appointment of Mueller.
Unbelievable. Congressman, we are not going to let up. There are apparently 50,000 of them, and apparently 1.2 million pages that the Inspector General has that Congress needs to get. And I'm just urging Congress, if they don't hand them over soon, you must hold these people in contempt and worse.
Without question.
All right, Congressman, thank you. And joining us now with more, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Fox News contributor, investigative reporter Sarah Carter, and attorney David Limbaugh. By the way, David has negotiated every single one of my radio and TV contracts throughout my entire career. We've had dinner together on multiple occasions. I have paid most of those occasions, and he is also a friend of mine. Did I get them all out? All right. Sarah, let's start with the new memos, and more importantly, what people are telling me, that they see gaps all over this.
That's what I've been hearing, Sean, as well. I mean, as you can see right here, we have the memos. There's only 47, 49 pages. I haven't had a time to go through all of them, but a lot of the important parts appear to be redacted, and there appears to be big gaps in between the text messages. Now, they did talk about clean Gmail, and that is important because that means that they would have just dropped them into a draft box in a Gmail account that only both Strzok and Page had access to, and those would have never been transmitted. So that would be interesting to see if the IG could get a hold of that, and I don't think that's going to be possible unless they gave up their Gmail account. Also, if there is more text messages, if there are more text messages, the IG should be able to answer that. Maybe they weren't able to retrieve them, but there should be an answer.
Didn't we think there were 50,000 at one point?
Yes, yes. There's supposed to be 50,000 altogether. And according to what we've seen in the past, this is nothing. This is nothing compared to what we've seen them text message in the past. This is a almost reduced version. Somebody said it's a nothing burger if you don't have all of the gaps filled in.
That's such an important point. What the Justice Department doing here is they're playing games, and they're also violating subpoenas of Congress. A couple of things I want to ask you. Number one, let's go to Comey's interview with Brett Baird tonight, and the contradiction on FISA. Seriously? He didn't know that Hillary paid for this? Do you buy that?
The first thing you do as FBI director on a big investigation like this is to find out the source of it, who paid for it. To hear him tonight, he says, I still don't know, and he thought Republicans are the ones who first initiated the dossier.
Well, they did, but not with Christopher Steele was brought in with the Democrats.
The dossier had nothing to do with the Republicans paid for opposition research. The dossier wasn't until much later. Look, it's now official.
How does he not know that? Greg, how does he not know this?
Because he is probably the most clueless FBI director ever, or he is a prodigious liar. I'll just give you a couple examples. First, he insisted these were his personal documents, the presidential memos. The law says they are not. He said there wasn't classified information. That's untrue. The FBI says there is. They had to seize it to contain it.
Now a third person, apparently,
Yes, David Kelly. And isn't it interesting? He leaked these classified documents to 3 people who he's now hired as his counsel so that
all 3 of them.
He can conveniently hide behind the attorney-client privilege on those communications.
Maybe we've learned a thing or two about attorney-client privilege that may not be as so applicable as we once thought.
Right.
What are the crimes we've talked about?
Oh, listen, for James Comey, you're looking at everything from misleading Congress to obstruction of justice to abuse of power on the FISA warrant. The list really goes on and on. David Limbaugh, let's get your reaction to both the breaking news we now have and also the president's comments this morning. I thought he gave a really good interview, no holds barred on Fox and Friends. And I don't, Trey Gowdy said, if you're innocent, act like you're innocent. That's how I'd act when I'm innocent. I would be, hey, that's not true. And I think most people react that way.
This is what middle America likes about Trump, that when he's falsely accused of something, he fights back, he does it publicly, he does it from the heart. This is a sincere thing. There's a double standard, and people are tired of this. They're tired of the overwhelming evidence against the Democrats and Hillary Clinton and the underwhelming evidence against Trump and the disproportionate enforcement against both. Comey, I have to say, showed such a casual indifference to the funding, the DNC funding of the dossier, and of whether it constituted a major part of that FISA application. And in fact, it constituted maybe the whole thing. And he acted like he still doesn't know that. Has he been just pushing his book only? How can he be that indifferent to the biggest thing going on during his tenure there at the end? I agree with Greg. Either he's terribly naive or he's almost criminally negligent, and I use that loosely, not in a formal sense, not to know what's going on, because they presented that evidence to the FISA court. And they represented to the FISA court that they had independent evidence to warrant an investigation of this court that ought to be treated with hallowed respect. And it was totally abused under Comey's watch, and he doesn't even care to this day.
Who told him about the dossier when? He didn't know who paid for it. This is not adding up. I did forget to disclose Greg Jarrett's office is 2 doors down from mine.
Right.
Thank you all for being with us. All right, when we come back, we have so much more coming. Trace Gallagher, live report, explosive verdict, Bill Cosby, Geraldo Rivera versus Dan Bongino, so much more. Don't touch that dial. Earlier today, a jury in Pennsylvania found Bill Cosby guilty of drugging and molesting a woman. Now, the conviction capped off what is an unbelievable fall from grace. The 80-year-old comedian, television star, now facing up to 30 years in jail. He joins us from our West Coast newsroom to break down today's verdict. Fox's own Trace Gallagher. And Trace, 62 women over time, but the statute of limitations had passed for them.
Right, and when the verdict was read, Sean, Cosby accusers hugged and cried inside the courtroom. Cosby himself just sat and stared, showing little, if any, emotion, until District Attorney Kevin Steele demanded that Cosby go straight to jail, saying the former TV star has an airplane and could easily flee. That's when Cosby called Steele an a-hole, shouting, "I'm sick of you." In the end, because of Bill Cosby's age and health, the judge placed him under house arrest. During the 2-week trial, accuser Andrea Constand testified that Cosby knocked her out with blue pills and then sexually violated her. 5 other women told similar stories, but the star defense witness said Andrea Constand once talked about framing a high-profile person. But after 14 hours of deliberations over 2 days, the jury of 7 men and 5 women voted guilty on all 3 counts. The DA said Cosby had used his celebrity, wealth, and network of supporters to conceal his crimes. The defense said the fight is not yet over. You'll recall during a deposition given a decade ago, Bill Cosby acknowledged he gave quaaludes to women he wanted to have sex with, saying, quote, "the same as a person would say, have a drink." Under Pennsylvania law, sentencing must happen within 90 days. And as you said, Bill Cosby could be facing up to 30 years in prison.
Trace, unbelievable. And now back to our breaking news story of the night. We're learning more information on these newly released text messages between anti-Trump FBI officials Strzok and Lisa Page. Joining us now, former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino, Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. First reaction to Cosby.
You know, the Me Too movement is for real. It didn't start, for nothing. Cosby was the poster child for it. I'm heartbroken.
Comparing a Quaalude to a drink.
But you said it yourself. 62 women have come forward to accuse the man who was America's dad of this horrible conduct. I think it is a fragile verdict, though, just as an attorney. You didn't give full disclosure that I sometimes give you advice.
I've never paid you. You've never done a case. No third party ever.
You bought me a drink the other day. I think that because the judge allowed these 5 other witnesses to come forward, essentially, who were not the accusers in this criminal case, prior bad acts, is acceptable, but in a limited fashion. This was really extravagant to allow 5 women who were not the accusers to testify against him. So I think that he has a reasonable chance on appeal. If he goes to prison, though, and he can very likely go to prison after the 90 days, and when he's sentenced, he could easily die in jail when the appeal is pending.
You know, this is a level of predatory evil. When you think of drugging another human being like this and assaulting him like this, and the women all have the same stories, and he admitted about the drug issue. It's incomprehensible with the public image we know.
Yeah, this is sick, Sean. I mean, these are people's daughters. These are people's mothers. These are good friends to people. These are people's soccer coaches. I mean, 62 women, you have to drug them. It's such a disturbing story, so not commensurate with the image he played on TV. I think that's why it's so shocking.
Dark and evil. This is evil.
Unquestionably.
What these women are describing?
Every single second of that 30-year. He earned every second of that 30-year sentence.
Let me go back to our top story. We have new Strzok Page emails. We have haters. We have Page and Strzok despise the president. Then you watched James Comey tonight. James Comey didn't know any of these issues that we've been talking about. He said he couldn't remember who told him about the dossier. He couldn't, and when he was told, and that he didn't know that Christopher Steele was only brought in when Clinton was paying for it. And the FISA court judge, they never verified it. They never corroborated it. They omitted who paid for it to the judge. How could they possibly ever get a warrant under those circumstances?
We know that James Comey is a self-confessed leaker. The president calls him a leaker and a liar. I don't know yet whether he is a liar. We know Andrew McCabe is accused of lying. His former associate is accused of lying. We'll see.
Was it a lie by omission when he was under oath and he said he only revealed it to one person? Now we know it's 3?
Well, it is, to me, the most startling thing is that here is James Comey pretending, I think, that he did not know that the dossier was the basis for the FISA
Pretending or
warrant.
lying, Geraldo?
Well, we'll see. I think that he is a much diminished figure. I mean, this vaunted Jack Friday.
He's in legal jeopardy.
He's become a schlumper, a promoter.
There's now a criminal investigation.
Well, we'll see where that goes. I think the bottom line, though, and the most important thing, is there is no collusion. There is no Russian collusion. Why are we even here? Why are we talking about it? Because the allegation was a stunning allegation, a foreign power colluding with a candidate to bring down or to sabotage a national election.
Dan Bongino, last word.
Listen, he's got to be lying, Sean. Does he not understand how probable cause works? If you need 10 points of information to establish probable cause, and the FISA was even a half a point, you don't have probable cause if it's missing. Does he not understand that?
He said it's irrelevant who funded it. It was a small part of the FISA warrant application. That's not what Grassley, Graham, and Nunes said. They said it was the bulk of the application.
It was certainly the lead.
Yes, Geraldo's correct.
And if they didn't need it, they shouldn't have included it. So he's full of it. He's making that up.
Andrew McCabe, remember the report? Without any dossier, there wouldn't have even been an application. So he's contradicted. Again, there's a collision course between McCabe and Comey. We welcome you back. You've been away for a little bit.
Thank you. May I just say that General Sessions, I finally agree with him when he says no second special counsel.
Well, not yet.
Let the Inspector General do his job.
This law has to go away.
I think it's a terrible law.
Yeah.
Terrible.
All right. Thank you both. When we come back, Kanye West still sticking up for President Trump. The left is viciously attacking him. We're going to speak with the conservative woman who started Kanye's tweet storm, Candace Owens, right here in studio with Darryl Parks. That's straight ahead.
colon cancer.
Years. He sees that stuff, and he's smart. And he says, you know what? Trump is doing a much better job than the Democrats did.
Meanwhile, last night, leftist, liberal, late-night hosts, they go after Kanye West. Why? Because he supports Donald Trump. Why? Take a look.
We have the right to independent thought. Yes, we have the right to independent thought, and I independently think that Kanye has lost his mind. Donald Trump is your brother. It is true. I am your brother, too. And brother to brother, I just want to say, put the phone down.
Kanye West tweeted pictures this afternoon of a Make America Great Again hat he got from President Trump. In response, Trump tweeted pictures with some clothes that Kanye got him.
Like, I don't even know what happened here. I think Kanye West just realized he's too rich to not be Republican. I don't even know what it is.
So now Donald Trump has two black friends. I hope Ben Carson doesn't get jealous.
All right, joining us now with reaction, civil rights attorney Daryl Parks and Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens is in studio. So great to have you.
I'm so glad.
You actually are part of this story. Kanye first defended you.
That is absolutely right. Apparently, it was my brain that launched this ideological civil war in the black community, and I am so excited about it. This is a tremendous time to be alive as a black American. We've been existing under this facade, these lies the Democrats have orchestrated, because they consider us a low information voter market, you know, and they think we're not going to research the stats and we'll never find out.
I hate the race card. It's played every election year.
Absolutely.
Every single election year. It drives me nuts. You know, 14 states, Daryl, now have record low unemployment, record low. Black Americans, record low. Hispanic Americans, record low. Women in America, record low. Unemployment records. That is since Donald Trump was elected president of the United States. Is that good for America? Obama had 8 years, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty. That was his legacy. Who's doing a better job? Who's doing a better job?
Well, Sean, first of all, I don't know how President Trump could take responsibility for that progress. That still doesn't deal with the real issue. The real issue is that black Americans are still having great difficulty, and the unemployment for black Americans is twice that of whites.
Until every forgotten man and woman has a job and a trajectory to the life they want in this great free country. You're not answering my questions. Look at these numbers.
But
now
we
I have
agree
you.
in some ways.
How did Obama fail with 13 million more Americans on food stamps? Did he fail? Did he fail with 8 million more in poverty 8 years later?
No, he did not fail at all. He did not fail at all. I think what he did was he made black America a focus. What I want to see, though, is President Trump to show us that black America is a priority for him and to have specifics as to how he plans to do that. There are issues of mental health,
he's
education,
skating around the issue, and it's okay. I actually like when they do this, have these delusional responses. Just admit that the people, blacks are doing better under the Trump presidency. That's totally fine, but it's this refusal to admit it, and blacks are going to start doing the research, and they're going to start seeing what's going on.
I have been frustrated. Al Gore, Republicans don't even want to count you in the census, or, you know, the change in tone and cadence before predominantly black American audiences, I always felt was insulting. But the policies, you know, look at what Kanye said, 4,000 American souls slaughtered in Chicago. We once scrolled the names. We heard about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. We heard about Freddie Gray, Baltimore. We heard about Ferguson. I scrolled the names. We never heard of these 4,000 people shot and killed.
Well, listen, that's because Chicago is run by Democrats, and they never want to hold up a mirror to what they're doing, so that's why we never heard those names. 4,000, that's exactly right. That's the exact same number, about the same number of Americans that were slaughtered in the Iraq War. Right? It's a war zone. And Trump offered to send the National Guard, and the Democrats majorly opposed him. So what it comes down to is Trump is trying to be effective there, and we're seeing that we have so many great results in black America because of him.
What do you say to Daryl?
But Sean, let me say this, though. I think I want to hear from our president to tell us that something about black America is a priority for him tomorrow. I would love to hear him focus on mental health, education, health care. Those are issues that he can help us with tomorrow.
Yeah, Obamacare worked out great for everybody.
On those issues.
Well, look, it sounds like you're signing up for 8 years of Trump. That's what it really comes down to, because he's doing a great job, the numbers are better, and he needs more time in office to continue to do an amazing job. So it sounds like you're almost aboard the Trump train, which makes me feel happy. We're agreeing on something here.
Well, let me say something. I want to see Trump be successful because this is our country, but I don't think he is focusing on the issues that really affect Black America. I hope he would, though.
So then you must agree that Obama was not focusing whatsoever on the issues that were affecting Black America if you don't think that Trump is right now, because the numbers are in and blacks are doing better under his administration.
I love President Obama, and I don't think we should spend any more time trying to put him down.
I think it's important to show that things are a lot different, and it's important because for so long they have told us that because there was a black president, this meant progress. Progress is not a skin tone. Progress is a number, okay? And for so long we've been convinced, look, he's taking a photo op with Beyonce and Jay-Z. That means absolutely nothing. Chicago got worse while Obama was in office, and he came from there. That's what I mean, you can't dispute the facts.
Is this a cultural shift? Is this going to have?
We are on the brink of a cultural shift, and I can tell you right now, It is going to be amazing to watch. And I'm so happy that it starts with a single tweet, and I did predict it. I said Kanye West would be the person that
I said the
broke
last
culture.
time when I interviewed you earlier in the week, it's going to be fun to watch your trajectory and your rise. You're a superstar.
Thank you
and it's
so
an honor
much.
to know you and have you. And I still like Daryl, even though we disagree on everything. Daryl, good to see you. When we come back, incredible news and pictures out of North Korea. For the first time ever, a North Korean dictator has gone to South Korea. We've got it for you. All right, earlier today, Mike Pompeo was sworn in as Secretary of State just as the White House released photos of him meeting with North Korean dictator. Look at it right there, Kim Jong-un, over Easter weekend. Now, this is a meeting that President Trump today said was not originally planned. Now, Secretary Pompeo, look, I've known him. He is a brilliant man, first in his class at West Point, and I think, look at this. This will go down. He will go down in history as one of the great secretaries of state, and this is just the beginning. Very, very encouraging. Also today, during his interview on Fox and Friends, the president spoke about the negotiations with North Korea. He didn't call him Little Rocket Man, I don't think. Take a look.
I'm not like Obama, where you go in and you have Kerry, who's the worst negotiator I've ever seen. He goes in for the Iran deal. He never leaves. He should have left. He should have just left. He could have made a much better deal. Look, it was very, very nasty. With Little Rocket Man and with the buttons and, my button's bigger than everybody said, this guy's going to get us into nuclear war. Let me tell you, the nuclear war would have happened if you had weak people. We had weak people. This should have been settled long before I came into office. This is a much different ballgame than if they did it 5 or 10 or 20 years ago.
And remember Bill Clinton, this is a good deal for the American people. Wasn't a good deal. Appeasement, bribing dictators doesn't work. Peace through strength does. Ask Churchill. Look at Reagan. Look at Churchill. Anyway, historic moment tonight. The North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un, right there, crossing the DMZ. He became the first North Korean leader to ever set foot in South Korea since the end of the Korean War in 1953. Amazing day of, well, that's history. Joining us now, Reaction retired CIA Senior Intelligence Officer and Sonoran Policy Group Vice President Daniel Hoffman. Look, we're not there yet, but those images should give everybody hope. And the president was right. They said, oh, he's going to World War III, World War III. No, Churchill proved it. Reagan proved it. Peace through strength works, not bribing dictators like Clinton and Obama with $150 billion.
Right. We're taking some really productive steps, and I would highlight a couple of things about these negotiations. First of all, we're building some muscle memory in North Korea Hermit Kingdom for diplomatic negotiation, which is really important. Mike Pompeo's trip out to North Korea and the current negotiations between the two leaders, North Korea and South Korea, are steps in the right direction. In addition, I can tell you from the optic of a retired intelligence officer, one of the things that President Trump will rely on is an intelligence briefing, a leadership profile of Kim Jong-un. And the best guy to do it is Mike Pompeo, because he's met with Kim Jong-un, and he's going to help prepare the president as well as he could be prepared for that summit if it takes place.
Mike Pompeo, I've known him a long time. He's a man of principle and character. He is so right for that job, in my opinion. I'm glad he's actually in that position. Yeah.
I agree with you, and I also think he'll be the one to advise the president for some realistic expectations. Remember, as you pointed out, we've got, over 20 years of misguided, ineffective policy to clean up, and that doesn't happen, in my view at least, at one summit. And so
Agreed.
some realistic expectations are really important. I don't expect to see denuclearized Korean Peninsula after the summit. It's going to take a little bit of time, but again, I think we've got the right team in place to make something happen.
Look, we didn't think we'd see these images tonight, did we? It's funny. You think of Winston Churchill. What's our goal? Victory, blood, toil, tears, and sweat. And Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Clinton said, this is a good deal for the American people. Obama sent $150 billion to the mullahs in Iran that chant death to Israel, death to America. We seem not to learn that lesson.
Well, I think we have learned something because, we stung the North Korean regime with some really tough sanctions, and we've isolated them. And Kim Jong-un, I think, realizes right now that he needs to pursue some negotiations. He's also practically wiped out a mountain where he's conducting all those tests, and he really can't conduct any more tests there. I mean, the seismologists have confirmed that that's just not an option. He's putting China and the rest of the region at risk in